This town ain't big enough for the two of us when it comes to Jon Moxley and CM Punk. Our savior, our hero, the voice of the voiceless, the great martyr of professional wrestling, is full of shit. And I'm gonna crush him.
Jon Moxley versus CM Punk for the undisputed AEW World Championship is one of the best matches of the year. I knew that from the moment the bell rang at the end of the 2-minute and 59-second match. From the go, I knew that I loved this match and how it unfolded and how it played out compared to my expectations of it coming in. The more I sat with it in the aftermath, though, the more I kept thinking about this match and how it fits into the larger stories these two were telling, the more I came to appreciate it. On Twitter, I added this match to my Match of the Year candidates thread, and under the star rating, I just wrote, "I don't know, man. I'll figure it out later." So let's figure it out. First, just a quick recap of events to set the scene. On May 29th, CM Punk defeats Hangman Page in the main event of AEW Double or Nothing to become the new AEW World Champion. Just a few days later, on the live June 3rd edition of AEW Rampage, CM Punk announces that he needs to take time off from pro wrestling as he needs to heal a foot injury. After a little bit of promotional fumbling, it becomes clear that CM Punk will continue reigning as AEW World Champion, while an interim champion gets crowned in his place. On June 26th at Forbidden Door, Jon Moxley defeats Hiroshi Tanahashi to win the interim AEW World Championship. On the August 10th edition of Dynamite, CM Punk returns to the company to help fight off an assault from the Jericho Appreciation Society. Moxley and Punk have a brief confrontation, which sets up their inevitable title unification bout. The following week, on August 17th, CM Punk cuts a scathing promo running down several of his rivals in AEW before getting to Jon Moxley. A brawl breaks out between the two twice on the show, culminating in the announcement of the title unification match for the August 24th Dynamite.
Sounds like a lot of...
Hoopla!
It sounds like a lot of...
Hoopla!
The August 17th promo that Punk cut was notable for a few reasons. Every wrestler that Punk called out in this promo,
Hangman Adam Page! Jon Moxley's got a lot of fans. His best friend is the third best Eddie I've ever been in the ring with.
is a babyface on the AEW roster. At the same time, the insults that Punk throws at some of them,
Jon Moxley is the third best guy in his own group. And that seems to be a reoccurring theme in his career.
are of questionable credibility, to say the least. All this means that there's a much more antagonistic and line-stepping tone to Punk's promo here than usual. I wouldn't go as far as to call it heelish, but it's the kind of shit talk that's always made Punk so compelling and so abrasive as a persona. The heated nature of Punk's promo led to an outburst of online reports, rumors, and speculation. I'm not here to lay out all the accusations and rumors, but suffice it to say, word of backstage unrest at AEW came to the fore, much of it surrounding Punk himself. Combined with the odd timing of the match being on a regular Dynamite so close to the all-out pay-per-view, led to much speculation about backstage politics and maneuvering potentially getting in the way of the obvious pay-per-view main event. I normally wouldn't bring any of this up, but I think it's important to acknowledge the general sentiment and atmosphere coming into the title match. Everyone knew something off was going down with this match happening on a Dynamite, and the backstage rumors generally painted Punk in an unfavorable light. All in all, there were many reasons for fans both plugged into the backstage gossip or just watching each episode of Dynamite to have hard feelings against Punk coming into the match. By now, most of you have probably seen the match or at least know how it went down. Hell, it's up on AEW's YouTube channel in its entirety for free, so you can pause this video right now and watch the whole thing before coming back. It's an incredibly short match. After an early, heated exchange of strikes, Punk nails a roundhouse kick to the head. This ends up tweaking and re-injuring the bad foot that he planted on, and Punk sells it like absolute death. Mox is swift to capitalize on the injury, cutting Punk down with a big lariat before following up with the signature BCC elbows and a gruesome ankle crank to boot. 2 paradigm shifts later, and Mox is the undisputed AEW World Champion. Of course, the key moment here is Punk's foot giving out. In my 1992 video, I talked about how Sting crashing into the ring post in his first match against Vader was this cruel twist of fate upon which the entire match hinged upon. The same principle comes here, but instead of a near-random accident, we have Punk re-aggravating a known injury and costing him. Whether you came into this match rooting for or against Punk, there's something to be taken from this moment. If you're rooting for Punk, it's a tragic turn that sees a fighting champion undone by his own brave attempts to rush into battle. If you're rooting against Punk, then it's a karmic punishment for Punk's arrogance and overconfidence in the moment, rushing out of recovery from the injury. It's such a good little twist because throughout the year, multiple workers have gone out of their way to fold in real-life injuries to become part of their in-ring narratives. Whether that's Dax Harwood at Forbidden Door or Bryan Danielson at Fight for the Fallen, AEW has been littered with stories about how injuries recur and drastically change the complexion of a match. Punk's is just the latest in a very old trend in pro wrestling. Injuries are a part of sports in reality, and making those consequences a key part of a major title change in AEW adds an element of realism and gravity to the whole affair. Now, let's talk about Mox. While there's a very valid reading that this was a match that Punk lost the match rather than Mox winning it, I think there's enough here to show the differences between the two. For example, when Mox crowds Punk in the corner with strikes, Punk needs the space to recover before firing back up. But when Punk does the same thing to Mox later, Mox uses the slightest opening to headbutt Punk and go back on offense. It's that headbutt that makes Punk desperate enough to throw the kick that loses him the match. Mox was just far too overwhelming for Punk on this night, and why shouldn't he be? Quite simply, not only did Mox deserve this, but it was just the right way to go. Jon Moxley has been on an unreal run, where he's more than distinguished himself as the single most important wrestler on the planet via his interim title reign, plus his continued pursuits on the independents. He deserved to have this championship reign legitimized in the history books after his first reign had to be carried out in front of empty venues. And there really was no better time to do that than in a moment where Punk was the center of much antagonism and controversy, and the match was happening in Mox's own hometown. As great as Punk was, he literally couldn't do anything as champion. He won the belt and went away to recover, whereas Mox showed up day in and day out, not just in AEW, but everywhere to continue blazing a trail through the professional wrestling industry. In this moment, Mox gets to surpass the one question mark hanging over his run. In fact, not only surpass it, but drive it into the dirt. And again, even if you're rooting for Punk, there's something here for you. Mox is now this massive challenge, a near insurmountable foe. There's a lot of different ways Punk can approach working his way back up to that championship. All that story and possibility perfectly captured in 3 minutes of action. It is by far one of the most efficient and effective matches of the year. Literally not a second wasted. And with the brief time given, it accomplishes everything that it needed to, given where both these characters are in the moment. Placing this on Dynamite with All Out around the corner meant that I didn't come into this match expecting some 30-minute classic. I think it's important for me to note here that I came into this looking forward to something a little different, whether that meant a no contest, some wild interference, anything to keep the storyline going. Doing it this way might be one of the smartest ways to handle the match in a new and out-of-the-box way while still giving the fans a decisive result. It's a perfect storm. Whether you believe the backstage rumors about Punk or not, doesn't matter. Everything you need was on the TV. The man came back from injury, drew the ire of his rivals and the fans, and then paid off those harsh feelings by being embarrassed by the man truly carrying AEW on his back. It's the kind of pro wrestling storytelling that I kind of live for, all presented in a surprising but nonetheless satisfying, compact package. It is one of the most impressive pieces of booking I've seen from AEW in their entire run, and it's executed to perfection by two of the best in the world. CM Punk vs. Jon Moxley is one of the best matches of the year. I came into this video wanting to share my thoughts and parse out just how to sum up my love for this match. My final rating for it, after some consideration, would be a unconventional and abbreviated match structures, especially for world title situations, open up greater avenues for creativity and high stakes down the line, and when left in the hands of such excellent performers, can produce something genuinely unexpected while still furthering the established storylines of the company while leaving room open for further developments and growth, which is exactly what I kind of want from TV wrestling. Out of 5. Or 4.25 stars, whichever makes more sense. Thank you all for making it to the very end of the video. If you enjoyed what you saw and you want to see more, don't forget to comment down below, give the video a like, and demolish the hell out of that subscribe button and the notification bell. I want to say a massive thank you to all my supporters over on Ko-fi. Thank you to one-time supporters such as Ryan Acosta, Tim Cook, Cam Rodericks, Benjamin Emerson, Ben, Corey Bailey, and Zbadoosh. And a massive thank you to all my monthly supporters in James Draper, Captain Jack Heartless, Eddie Roberts, Jacob Dickens, Chick Fritz, Spiders in My Bed, Timothy R. Buchner, In Delane, Donomatic, Peter Venison, Kid Kingpin, Joe Humphreys, Christopher Jackson, Saltine Daltine, Dustin Faulkner, Edgar Molina, Four Pillars of Hell, Sean Emily, Mason Rollison, Carve Kutta, Jacob VR, Craig Jones, Merch Table Mafia, Clem DK, Suitcoat Man, Ando Commando, Con, Shane, Vibe MD, Christoph, Quentin Besnahard, Matthew Haggerty, Christopher Richards, Dom G, Cathal Cuddy, Austin Shermer, Ben, and Wrestling Playlists. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for helping support the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw here today. Thank you again, and have a good one.